one of the differences between multifamily and hotels is, we really don't look at cap rates. Such, you don't buy because hotels are considered a business. It's
Business,
not
yeah.
considered a real estate. You don't buy a McDonald's and say, well, that McDonald's is only a four cap. I mean, you don't think that way.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what we do is number one, I look at in the hotel business, what are the drivers?
Are you looking to achieve massive success in your life without dealing with costly investment nightmares? If yes, then this is the podcast for you. Here, we provide engineers and busy professionals all the secrets and strategies to create multiple streams of income, build generational wealth, and live a meaningful life by design. Here's your host, Ted Patel.
Hey everyone, this is Ted Patel, and welcome to this week's edition of Decoding Cashflow podcast. Our today's guest is Michael Stohler, who is a former commercial airline pilot, Navy veteran, and co-founder at Gateway Private Equity Group's a real estate investment firm whose portfolio includes hotels, multifamily, and residential properties. Seeking value-add opportunities and high returns, Mike pivoted to multifamily from multifamily to hotels, and now his focus exclusively on this niche. So, Mike, welcome to Decoding Cashflow. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it.
All right. So before we get started and start discussing on your niche, right? If you'd like to give our listeners a little bit background about yourself, like how did you get started in the real estate and what do you do right now?
Sure. Yeah. I got started what I call PG days, pre-Google.
Okay.
And so it's a little bit harder for us who've been around for a little while. Um, as most of your listeners, if they have anything, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, oh, and I couldn't believe it. I just for Day of the Dead this past year, Robert Kiyosaki and I were at the same party, so I got to meet one of my heroes in the real estate world.
Awesome.
It was awesome. He was a great guy. But what happened was buying it was very easy. I went out and bought 8 units right away. I was like, my God, I'm just going to, do this. I'm going to be rocking and rolling. But then because it was pre-Google days, it's like, how do you be a landlord? I don't know how to do it. What forms are necessary? I couldn't, there's no printouts. There's no
There's
podcasts
no
like that.
material out there. Yeah.
There's nothing in small town Indiana where I was from. I'm like going, so I failed miserably because I was like, I don't know what, I went and changed the locks. It's like, oh, you can't do that. I didn't. So, so I failed miserably, and it's not all roses and things like that. So you really have to learn in the importance of having mentors, having coaches, having podcasts, learning and networking. Just failed miserably. I mean, we had to sell everything, move in with my wife's parents. I mean, it really hit, but it hit hard in the back of my mind. And that's what then in between, I was an airline pilot.
Hmm.
Um, just wanted to be, it's like, why not be an airline pilot? Um, but during that whole time, I was like, going, you know what? This is how you do it. So it's thinking outside the box. I was like, I'm going to apply to go to these apartment complexes and then take their forms,
Okay.
you know, and learn how they do these things and pay attention. So after that, I started using my money and just buying singles and then fourplex and all this sort of stuff.
When
And
was that? Like what year did you get started and with this?
let me see, I first started in 97, and
Okay.
then early, just after 9/11, or right after 9/11 is when I started,
Buying single families.
yeah, started buying single families, fourplexes. And then in 2003, we moved to Arizona, which was a lot more friendly. And I'm like, oh, wow, I mean, I can just buy everything
Mhm.
out here, you know? And so what happened though is I started building up the portfolio and it was doing real well, had property management managing for it. And then I got injured pretty bad flying into Houston with the airlines. And so I was on disability and I realized it's like, these property management groups are kind of taking advantage of me. No wonder I'm not making as much money as I can because they're charging. If they sneeze, they charge me. Um, so I fired them, and now there's Google. Now there's mentorships. Now there's seminars and things like that. So I just started learning,
Hmm.
and it got to the point it's like going, wow, And then while I was on disability, I sold a couple properties and built up some more, and just snowballed, snowballed. And then I was like, you know what? I kind of like this more than the flying part. Um, I'll just buy my own airplane if I want to, if I'm successful. So I quit as an airline pilot, decided to do this full time, and went from another fourplex to 50 plexes, 100 plexes, another 100 plex, and then ended up selling a whole portfolio. Um, when the cap rates were really getting compressed, and this was around 2006. And I should say what really helped me was during the 2007 2008 crash,
Hmm.
when people couldn't get refinanced. That's when I was just went gangbusters on seller financing and just bailing people out and just building a portfolio. A lot of people say, it was one of the worst times of their lives. Man, I made a lot of money during that 2008 to 2012, 13.
Yeah, that was
And then
that was a golden time for real estate investors who
it was
had
golden time
liquidity.
for us,
Yeah.
it's golden time for us. But then, I ended up selling the portfolio. I was like, okay, now what? I was buying at 8 to 10 caps, sold everything at about 4 cap.
Hmm.
And that's when I got into hotels. I was like, oh man, I don't want to buy stuff at 4 cap. That's what it was here in this area. So got into hotels.
Hmm.
Love it.
So you sold all your multifamily portfolios before you jumped into hotels. Like how did that transition happen? Like what triggered that transition from residential to hotels?
Yeah, yeah, great question. Number one, it's all about networking also.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
you know people. And when I was like, I was getting tired of multifamily. I was like, well, what do I do? And I knew this guy that had been in hotels for about 25 years. And I went up to him, and Indian, of course,
Yeah.
because it seems like, as I'm in the hotel world, a lot of Patels
Yeah, there
own
are a lot of
hotels,
them.
a
Yeah.
lot of things. And I've got to know quite a few of them, great people. But VJ um, had about 25 years, and I was like, "Well, here's what I want you to do." And ladies and gentlemen, if you ever jump into a different asset class, think about this type of, what I did is I said, I want you to teach me everything you know about hotels. You're going to find some hotels for me because I don't know
Mhm.
anything about it. I want you to run these hotels for me. And instead of me paying you anything outside of like a property management um, fee, what I'm going to do is give you profit on the end. So
Okay.
now he has an incentive to get these hotels up and running and do well because then he is a partner on the GP side, the general partner side. And that's how you do it. If you don't have a lot of money to pay someone $100,000 to run something, and you had kind of a bad taste in your mouth with property management, give them an incentive. It's like going, there's nothing more than better than saying, hey, I'll give you X amount of percentage
Mhm.
every
So
year
he
or every distribution.
Mhm. So he gets a percentage of profit per year, as well as at the end he gets on the exit he gets a profit also.
Yep.
Okay,
I
that's
basically made him a general partner without him having to put any money. What he's doing, he's giving his talent and his experience in replace
Mhm.
of I'm the money, he's the experience. And it was
Mhm.
well worth it for me to give him a cut of the profits because I have a whole new career now
So, yeah. How did you find your first investment actually? Like,
in hotels.
yeah,
Uh, it's one of those things where because of his networking, it's like going, hey,
okay,
this owner in this town. He goes, oh yeah, that's this guy.
okay,
Um, so it was basically he knew that this one town was going to be up and coming,
okay,
and one of his buddies said, hey, there's this hotel's going to be coming up on the market. Um, bad ownership, bad management. You guys are going to get a steal for it. Um, you know,
Hmm.
here's the deal. And he brought it to me, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy, and this place and this type of hotel. And man, thank God I did. It's like pay attention, shut up, and let the experts, teach you.
Yeah. And like currently, when you buy any new hotels, right? What are the specific criteria that you keep in mind before finalizing or, you know,
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
before underwriting the deals? Yeah.
COVID changed the way that I look at
Hmm.
hotels. Prior to COVID, it didn't matter the state, it didn't matter where, it didn't matter what type.
Hmm.
I just buy it. And so COVID, though, changed my criteria because during COVID, number one, I'll only invest in a state that will allow me to stay open.
Hmm.
I had a lot of friends that lost a lot of assets because that state government forced them to close. And the bank said, well, I'll give you 3 months deferment and that's it. Well, now they have
Yeah.
30, $40,000 a month payments and they're not allowed to do their business. So the criteria is I'll only go in hotels in case COVID 2.0 hits. I want to make sure that myself and my investors are covered. Number two, I found out that just out the ones that really did well is the limited service hotels or the extended stays did really, really well during COVID. It was the
Mhm.
big resorts, it was the big full service hotels that did when those type of hotels need the conference rooms, that money, need the restaurant money.
Yeah.
They didn't fare too well. But what was happening during COVID is truck drivers are still going. Essential services, those people are still going. They're still delivering
Yeah.
stuff. So they needed places to stay. So the type of hotels that we focus on mainly
Hmm.
off of a highway, um, limited service, extended
Okay.
stay, you have the free breakfast, the free internet, and then you're gone. Outside of a major city, those
Okay.
really well. But what I found out now is when you have high interest rates, economy like we've had in the last 4 years, the limited service takes a hit. So it's different from COVID. Now the limited service ones are taking a hit because the regular mom and pops can't afford to travel. They're staying home. But the people that have money, where this interest rates, the price of eggs, they don't care. They
Yeah.
don't even see it. So they're still traveling. So now the larger full service ones are doing. So you have to have both. It's like diversifying your portfolio in case these different things
Something
happen.
hits.
And
Yeah.
and that's our new builds. We're kind of concentrating. We have the limited service and things like that. But now we're concentrating on some high-end boutiques that were coming up in Europe, building a full service, with the rooftop bar, a very expensive soft brand Hilton. Yeah, so we're doing
In
both.
Arizona.
And the soft brand Hilton is going to be in Arizona.
Okay.
Rooftop bars. It's going to be
Hmm.
a very cool hotel. Um, so you need both. Just between, and I wouldn't have said that if COVID hadn't happened and these interest rates wouldn't have happened. It's
Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
it's different.
During the COVID, many of the hotel owners they went out of business due to the thing that you mentioned. Mortgages were due. There wasn't no income. They had to give it up. But yeah, thank God it's those periods are gone now.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And while you underwrite these deals, what are the specific numbers? Like if someone brings you a hotel deal, right? What are the numbers that you look at
Yeah.
to see if everything pans out properly?
Yeah. Great question. So one of the differences between multifamily and hotels is, we really don't look at cap rates. Such, you don't buy because hotels are considered a business. It's
Business,
not
yeah.
considered a real estate. You don't buy a McDonald's and say, well, that McDonald's is only a four cap. I mean, you don't think that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we do is number one, I look at in the hotel business, what are the drivers? Okay, someone brings me a hotel, and I get them all the time. A driver means what? Why would someone go and stay at this hotel?
Okay.
What drives them? Is it in a tourist spot? Is it next to concert venues? Is it next to skiing? Is it next to university? And COVID taught me that I need more than two drivers. Okay. It used to be, man, if I had a hotel next to a big university or near a really big business park, I'm set. But well, if no one's in school and the businesses are all on Zoom and they're not traveling, then it doesn't matter. So you need more than just that
Yeah.
criteria. You need, two or three. So we
Mhm.
look at that. And then I look at economic factors of what's going on the past 5 or 10 years in that town and what type of businesses, is it growing? Is it what's coming into that town? What's the economic feasibility of the town? I had an opportunity in Taos, New Mexico, and I was like, oh, Taos, New Mexico, but then you have to think of what's the economic factors? Does it make sense? Um, who the owner is, because if
Mhm.
the owner doesn't really know much about hotels, how much deferred maintenance is in that? So I like the owners, the sellers to be mature hotel owners. So if they're not, then the price is coming down because I guarantee you there's going to be deferred maintenance and some things that they just didn't think about.
Mhm.
And then I look at that market and who goes to that market. Um, is it blue collar people? Is it white collar people? Is it young people? Is it, what is the
Mhm.
market? And then you look at, does that hotel fit in that
Okay.
market? Is there a reason why they're not doing too well? Because you don't put a Marriott in a blue collar place where they love Motel Sixes and things like that. They'd
Yeah.
rather stay in a select service.
Yeah.
So there's just all these different factors that I look at, and then I look at how well the hotel's doing. And if
Mhm.
I do like it, I like everything. Maybe I just change the brand. Maybe I just change the franchise to something better. I've done that. Um, but there's a lot of factors that go in, and it's all about experience and knowing what to ask and what to look for.
And when you say you look into how well the hotel is doing, what are the numbers that you look at, like the income, expense, what different numbers do you
Mhm.
take into consideration?
The numbers I look at is we have in the hotel industry what's called like a star report. So I can know in the United States what their competition's doing.
Okay.
And I look at the gross revenue and the RevPAR, which is the revenue per available room. And those are kind of the big look instead of like cap rates and things like that.
Yeah.
I want to know how much revenue they're generating per available room. And then I look at what the competition's doing. And if I think that there's room to grow, that why are they $20 um, cheaper per night?
Hmm.
Why is their occupancy struggling Monday through Thursday? They have great weekend maybe occupancy, but their weekend. So I look at different factors like that, and can I increase? And I bring in the team, to do performance and things like that. But I look at, can I increase, number one, the gross revenue? Are
Hmm.
they lagging behind their competitor set? And maybe they're just not marketing very much. I look at their marketing budget, and then I talk to the marketing person or the current GM. So what kind of marketing are you doing? And they're like, well, I don't know, we let the franchise do that. So, then I know that we can go in and advertise to
Hmm.
travel teams, to, all these different things. And
Yeah.
uh, I look at their corporate, do they have any corporate accounts? Can I build that up? So there's just all those different types of things. And then we look at the expenses. And that's just like in multifamily. Can I use my vendors to save me money?
Hmm.
And then that gives you the NOI, you look at the expenses. And one thing that I learned a long time ago is there's a lot of family-owned hotels.
Yep.
The husband and wife, the kids, the grandparents. I mean, it's a multi-generational hotel ownership, and they don't pay themselves a lot. They all live probably in the same house,
Yep.
and so the salaries are really low. The payroll is very low. And I learned that the hard way. And I was like going, wow, this hotel's making a lot of money. I went in and I'm like going, oh, that's why, because they're paying everyone 15,000 a year, the kids and things like that. And my payroll is going to be more than double.
Yeah.
So I look at things like that, nuances that I found just through experiences. How can I decrease the expenses? And then we're running into now because of the economy is what's called DSCRs, the debt service coverage ratios. Um, the sellers want 2019 prices.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pro-COVID, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to buy that because you sit there and say, look, okay, you want $10 million for this hotel, but your NOI is 500,000 a year.
Mm.
Based on your selling price, I'm going to make 480,000. Why would I'm immediately upside down. So, you have those different things. So you look at the debt service coverage ratio and say, look, I want to make at least two times what my debt is. Can I make a 2.1 ratio? So that's kind of what we're looking at now and that's one of the reasons why I'm going over to Europe, over to Spain to purchase some hotels because there's kind of this clash between the sellers and the buyers of what they think the hotel's worth. But when you're paying, and that's great if you're paying 3, 4%, 5% interest rate, but at 8,
Yeah. It
it
doesn't
doesn't
make
cover the debt.
sense. Yeah.
It doesn't make
Mhm.
sense. And so there's some butting heads. But those are the main things that we kind of look at.
And let's talk about you said you're going to Spain. So you have a project that you're starting, or maybe a property that you're buying in Spain also, right? How do you
Mhm.
came across that property?
Yeah, very interesting. This original person that helped me,
Hmm.
Vic Singh is his name, and he has a place in Barcelona that he stays there 6 months out of the year. And the last couple of years, he kept saying, "Mike, you got to come over to Spain. We got to buy some stuff in Spain." I'm like, I'm not doing, Europe and socialism. I mean, I had all these excuses.
Hmm.
But then he goes, "Just come over here." So I went over there and he showed me some projects and the numbers and I was like, my God, they're just beautiful properties. So we got serious and started looking and started buying some things. And then we came across a gentleman that had just retired. Everyone's probably heard of BlackRock,
Yep.
um, the big REIT. They own
Hmm.
like the third of the world, seems like,
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, he did all their Spanish acquisitions, most of them. And we're lucky enough to have him on my team. We hired him. And again, we put him on the GP side instead of paying him to find assets. We made him part of the team. So through that and having people over there and having someone that's been there all their life and he knows, Jordy knows all the aspects and the nuances of the Spanish heritage and the culture and the locations. And we came across um, several estates or castles
Hmm.
that are, some of them are 800 years old. This one that we have an open syndication now. It's 1,000 years old. It's that storybook place. It's
Hmm.
most of the revenues come from like destination weddings.
Okay.
This is the place you want to get married to, and the people are paying 80 to $100,000 just to stay there and get married.
Wow.
Um, Corporate outings, but it's a beautiful place. But that's how we found it is just having a team over there. And I wouldn't invest over there if I didn't have someone over there full time. And what's nice about these type of assets, you just need caretakers. a
Okay.
husband and wife, a couple housekeepers, and that's it. This place has a Michelin type star restaurant attached to it. Um, so it's a phenomenal property. It was actually rated TripAdvisor one of the top 25 small hotels in all of Spain.
Oh, that's great.
And
Yeah,
so we have that syndication open, and we're having fun with it.
that's great. And for the hotels that you have here in US, are they managed similarly, or you have a management company which takes care of each hotel?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. I finally found a property management group
Hmm.
that I trust, and the owner's a good friend of mine. And prior, I would hire the GM. I would do all the hiring, firing. Vic was running some of the other ones,
Hmm.
and we would just kind of do it all ourselves. And we're like going, okay, we're not going to grow when we're working too this hard in the business. So I need to find a property management group that I trust. And so we finally, for the United States, we have this property management group, and they do an outstanding job. They're very tech heavy within
Hmm.
their property management group. They don't just sit there and say, we're doing this. They have all this software, all these analytics that they do, and because, ladies and gentlemen, one of the great things about hotels is I can change my rent as many times a day that I want.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the gas stations. I'm not stuck with these $1,000 a month for 12 months per door. So there's a lot of analytics that go into competing with comp sets,
Hmm.
and this group does a really, really good job.
And how do they get paid? Like based on the revenue generated or based what's
Mhm.
the matrix?
Yeah, the matrix is just a percentage of gross revenue.
Percentage? Is
Yeah.
it normally 5% or what's the
Usually
average
like
percentage in
three.
the three?
It's 3 to 5, but
Okay.
I don't pay five.
Okay. Good for you. You
Three
can
percent will
meet.
go away.
All right. And with now moving on to the financing side of this
Mhm.
these projects, right? Uh, as you mentioned earlier, you do syndicate these deals. You have some investors who come, you know, uh, and invest in these deals. How do you find these investors? Like, what are your main source or what is your main funnel to get these investors?
Depends on the project, and,
Okay.
and it's a great question. With a lot of my investors come. I golf. I'm a fanatic golfer. I dream of
Okay.
golfing.
All right.
Um, I've gotten a lot of investors. It's like I'm golfing Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Like, what do you do? What do you do? And all of a sudden they become an investor. A lot of times it's just being on shows like yourself. People. I do a lot of podcasts, and people are so used to multifamily, so used to the fix and flips, so used to all these different things. They're like going, "Wow, I didn't even know that you can invest in hotels." So it's just with people either on my own podcast, or I also talk at some seminars.
Mhm.
Um, so you get investors that way. Some of the big ones, and I do a lot of social stuff, a lot of charity work. You just it's networking. Um, and then if it's a complicated deal, there are actually, ladies and gentlemen, there's actually companies out there that find investors for you. Um, so if I'm having a little bit of a hard time, maybe it's a big raise or something like that. I call these guys up,
Mhm.
and they just do these blasts to 100,000 people that are accredited investors, and they know all these analytics. It's kind of scary, how much companies know about individuals, but that's another thing that we do sometimes is we'll hire these companies to find investors for us.
Okay. All right. And of course, it's all the financing. It's LTV would be
Mhm.
about
That's changed.
70/30,
No,
because it is a business, it gets looked at a different way, right? Based on the
yeah.
NOI. Yeah.
Um, and another thing, because hotels are business,
Yeah.
There's a lot of other type of financing that we can do. Okay.
Hmm.
And I, with the 70/30 or the 80/20, we're talking probably like a conventional loan.
Yeah.
And depending on the type of asset and the type of franchise, 30 is the minimum.
Okay.
Nowadays, just because the banks and everyone's kind of scared with the interest rates and things like that. So, and I'm also the type of person because I'm conservative. I like to have 40%.
Hmm.
Just to lower that debt coverage.
Okay.
So I always try to raise at least 40%. But we're also able to get SBA loans. We can get
Hmm.
USDA loans. We can get CMBS loans.
Hmm.
And these different types of loans that are only available for commercial have lower LTV. They have some fees, but they're better because you look at USDA, it's actually a 25 or 30-year fixed loan, like you would, your regular house.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
And SBA is similar, right? SBA is also pretty
Mhm.
competitive, like
Mhm.
compared to the other commercial loans available out
Yeah,
there.
and the bad thing with SBA is you're capped. I think it's
Mm, that's true.
5 million
Yeah.
total. So it's like, I mean, that's one hotel. Um, so you have different types of loan programs within the SBA where you can split it between the bank and the SBA.
Mm.
But once your funds and that's what one of the things that we're hoping that this new administration might do, because he happens to be in real estate, right? Is like, hey, increase that SBA thing a little bit, so we can buy some more hotels, But we'll see if that's probably very low on his priority list right now.
Yeah. All right. And as you mentioned earlier, you're also trying to venture out in ground up construction of the hotels. Am I right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I can't talk too much about location, and I've never seen an NDA like this.
mhm.
Uh, we don't even email each other. We has to be on phone calls. But anyway, the one of the largest developers in the United States is coming in and developing it's a $400-500 million project
Mhm.
um, in Arizona, and they've asked me to. They're going to give me 3 or 4 acres, and they asked me to develop, build, and run this a hotel portion of this
Okay.
development. But it's just the location alone. Um, it's just
Mhm.
it's just phenomenal. I can't believe that this fell in my lap. It's one of the best locations I think you can have, and they've asked me to build the hotel, and I'm like, yeah,
When are you planning to start that construction?
they say that all the approvals is going to be towards the end of first quarter
Okay.
is going to be
Are
when
you
we can
planning
move.
to wait till the other development gets completed before you get started, or are you gonna
No,
do it
because
in
it's a
parallel?
completely different team.
Okay.
So I can do Spain because I have my Spanish team that does that. Um, there's people in Spain full time that are handling that. This one is going to be the development side, and it's going to be the U.S. based team. And I can't even start raising money. I've been talking to some people. Some family offices are very interested in
Okay.
this one, but it's also going to be credited investors like we do. But the raises, this is going to be a 25-30 million dollar project.
Mhm.
Um,
Have you the land is already purchased, or it's still under contract? Like how?
Yeah. So yeah, they're once we get it's right now it's just in the approval process. So
Okay.
everything's done as far as the land and what they're doing is they've bought all the land and they're giving me 4 acres of it,
Okay.
so
So
I can build
they'll
out
be
there.
working on getting the land entitled, everything. Once it's done, they will
Yep.
cut that piece,
Yep.
give it to you.
It's
Right.
just right now it's all the approvals and city
Mhm.
council stuff, all that normal
Okay.
BS. But it's been a year in the making, and I think it's
Yeah.
finally coming to a close. And how tall you can do things. I mean, it's just different regulations are. You have to have this, you have to that. It can only be 4 stories, and it has to be this, and it has to have so much lighting. It has to be the green space,
Yeah.
and it's just
That's
oh my God, just let me build
that's
the
true.
thing.
And on top of that, whichever chain you're planning to do, Hilton, Marriott, they have their own different set of rules, regulation, compliances, or the type
Oh
of
yeah,
material you can use. Yeah.
oh, it's crazy. That's why I'm doing this. What's good? This, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be what's called a soft brand.
Hmm.
And a soft brand means, if you go to, let's say, a DoubleTree, you
Yeah.
notice anywhere you go, a DoubleTree anywhere in the world, and they all look the same. Blue sofas, the bar is over here, the seating area is over here. Um, a soft brand means that I can do whatever I want to with the hotel. I
Okay.
can make it look Scottsdale. I can make it look Southwest. They
Hmm.
can't tell me what I can and cannot do inside. It just has to be a certain sophistication level,
Okay.
for
Got it.
this.
Got it.
Um, so and Hilton won't even be in the name. It'll just be Mike's Hotel or something like that. I mean, it'll be a certain name. But what you do is you get attached to their um, reservation system
Hmm.
and
Got it.
100 million plus rewards members. So, that's why you tax yourself with a franchise like that.
Yeah. So, how do you see the future of this hotel business from like 2 to 3, 4 years from now? Like, where do you see it going? Is it a lot more getting more competitive? It's still
Mhm.
good to invest? How do you see it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of companies that do all this analysis, that I read. Um, the family vacations are going to continue to grow, and I think what they're saying is that once we get this economy out under control again, it's going to be even better. The corporate, they're saying that with a lot of the return to work, the return to the office, it's going to spur a lot of the downtown type of hotels. People are going to be forced to go into the offices, go into stay at hotels. So they're saying that that's going to kind of be a resurgent, but there's going to be a little less on the corporate side because there
Hmm.
are these Zoom meetings and there's
Yeah,
there's just it's cheaper for a company to set 5 people
in
up
the
wherever
conference
they're
room,
at and
and
just
yeah.
do a conference, in conference rooms. Um, but there's an unlimited amount of wealth right now, and there's just a lot of wealth in the world. So that's why we're kind of going towards these high-end boutiques. Um, when someone that has money goes to Spain, they don't want to stay at a Hyatt. They don't want to stay at a Hilton or a Marriott. They want to stay at a 1,000-year-old estate overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. So that's why we're
Something
kind of
unique.
very something unique, boutique.
Yeah.
You go to like Sedona out here in Arizona. You don't want to stay at a Hilton. You want to stay at this boutique overlooking the Red Rocks.
Mm.
Um, so there's a switch of experience type, lifestyle type vacations. So that's why the soft brands are starting to come a little bit more than just your cookie cutter hotels.
Mhm.
People want little experiences. They want to be a part of the town or the area that they're in. So that's going to be really good. But hotels, I think, are really going to uh, next 3 or 4 years, 5 years really help because there's also a lot of regulations now coming with Airbnbs and VRBOs. That
Mhm.
there's the towns and cities are fighting back against all of that, and that
Okay.
helps us out.
Okay. All right. Mike, um, it, it was a nice conversation, but I also want to be mindful of your time, Just wanted to move on to the final round of questions. But before that, is there anything else that you'll like to tell to our listeners?
No, if you're interested in diversifying, um, hotels is very unique. It's very fun.
Yeah,
Uh, and check us out and follow us.
they surely will. All right. Mike, let's move to the final round of questions. Are you ready?
Mhm.
All right. So the first one, which is the one book that had the most impact on your life or on your business?
Well, got to say, Rich Dad Poor Dad in the beginning. But what happened is once you get some money, the one that kind of changed my life was called The Money Secrets of the Rich.
Mhm. Okay.
And a good friend of mine, John Burley, wrote it. And what it did is the millionaire next door, the true rich don't care what they dress like. They don't care what the cars are. They just,
Yeah.
you, they have the $300,000 house in the neighborhood. But here's the thing is they've got the $1 million house up in there and then another one. And you wonder, it's like, going, how can you afford a $30,000 vacation? So it's that secrets of, if you have money, you don't need to show it off, with the
That's
fancy.
true. That's true.
So that book kind of changed my way of save the money, enjoy it in different ways. Don't spend it. You don't need, don't buy something unless you can actually make money off of that. And that was another thing inside that book. It's like, oh, you know what? I'd love to have an apartment in Spain. Now I need a corporate headquarters, right? Over in Europe. Now I just got my apartment in Spain.
Mhm.
Um, so how can you deduct something, And ladies and gentlemen, if you invest with us in Spain, every time you go to Spain, it's a write-off, right? You're going to go see your business asset. So
Mhm.
you think differently once you start reading some of these books.
That's true. All right. Mike, what are your main source of information to learn and grow?
People,
People,
podcasts
network.
like
Yeah.
yourself, networking. Yeah, just learning, sitting down, having coffee with people, and just getting to know them.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the main avenue, right? Network is your net worth. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely.
right. What is the best business or investment advice you like to give to our listeners?
Build a team, and then figure out your why. Why do you want to get into investing? Why do you want to get into real estate if that's it? And don't ever say because I'm going to make a lot of money. Um, that will come. So number one, find your why. For me is I wanted to build a life that I don't need a vacation from. Okay. I can now work anywhere in the world and do whatever I want and still do it and enjoy it. I don't need a vacation because I'm on vacation doing my business and I love it and I'd never change it. The other thing is build that team. Don't ever, as soon as I learned that I found out what my unique ability is, and that's finding the assets and analyzing the assets. Why am I doing all these other things? Build a team around you that enables you to concentrate on building the business instead of working in the business. So those are the two big things.
Yeah. Okay. And that reminds me of one of the book that I read, Who Not How. It's all about
Mhm.
finding the right person. Don't try to do everything by yourself. If you find the right person who is best at it, put him in charge.
Right. Yeah. I hate accounting, so why am I paying the bills?
Exactly.
Find an
Yeah.
accountant that loves being an accountant, let them do it.
Yeah. And what is the one habit or a routine that has been crucial to your success?
Taking the me time. When at the beginning, I was just work, 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 and then it's like you get stressed. You get, there's all this stuff that builds up, and then COVID hit, and then work, 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 and then there's a great resignation. Then the interest rate, all this stuff just piles up inside of you. Best thing I ever did is no matter how busy you get, whether strapping on the guitar at night and just play it for an hour, you need a release.
Mm.
Golf, exercise, something. Not only for your mental health, but your physical health and your family health. You got to have, you got to check out once in a while, or else it's just all going to build. Nothing good is going to happen when it all just builds up inside of you. You have to have a release for just an hour of the day. Take a nap, do anything. I don't care
Yeah.
what it is.
Yep. All right. Final question. How can Decoding Cashflow listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, website Gateway PE, as in private equity, gatewaype.com. And there you can check out the investor. You'll have it's called Hotel Cancush is the place in Spain, and that'll take you to a portal where you can look at all the videos and all the pictures of the wonderful place. Then Stohler, and if you tell me that you found me from, on this website, I'd love to, give me a call, give me some emails, Mike@gatewaype.com. I'd love to answer your questions.
All right, Mike. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll surely stay in touch.
All right. Thank you, Ted.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Decoding Cashflow, brought to you by Aster Capital. If you found value in this episode, then please share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And make sure to act on what you've learned. If you want Ted Patel to personally help you reach your goals, then feel free to set up a one-on-one call with him. Also, visit us at astercapital.com for more free resources. Content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. As always, please consult your own advisor before making any investment decisions or setting a course of action. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Decoding Cashflow, and we'll catch you in the next episode.